in 30 years' time, or let's say 5, 10, 15 years' time, because it's 30 years is too far, what will be more, the fast growth markets will be more important. For example, I was asked this morning by somebody from the BBC, about service companies in the UK and where there's a competition, because we are the second largest service economy in the world. Where's it, will the Chinese produce great advertising agencies? Will the Indians produce? Well, it would be very arrogant for us to believe that 1.3 billion, 1.4 billion people can't produce better advertising agencies than 66 million people on a crowded isle in the Northern Atlantic. It's going to change. So fast growth markets will dominate. So we'll go back to the 19th century when China and India were 40% of worldwide GDP. So that's one thing. Secondly, technology, obviously, it's trite to say it, will change most of the things we do. Digital's already 36% of our business, and we define it, 37% in the first quarter. We define it meticulously. That's going to become more and more powerful and will dominate all of our businesses. And then data will be critically important. It's 25% of our business. The numerical stuff is 50% of our business. And then leveraging the talent inside our business, we built WPP on the tribes, on the brands, and we haven't dismantled them. Despite my attempts to kill off J. Walter Thompson Company over 150 years, or not in my case 150 years, I've failed so far. Might succeed. But those brands, whilst we are very proud of those brands, and rightfully proud, and want those brands to prosper, just like Ogilvy, or Grey, or Young & Rubicam, over time, they may be important to us, but the clients really want the best people working on their business. And frankly, narrowing our offer, we have 180,000 people in 111 countries, to one of those tribes or one of those brands makes absolutely no sense whatsoever if you're the client. So the answer to the question, and I'll just add three more quick things to it. The answer to the question is Brazil, Russia, despite the problems that Brazil and Russia have at the moment, less so India and China, they're in our case going strong. They will dominate. They will be very strong, and it'll be very difficult for us in the West to get our minds around that. It'll be different for America, it's true. But for us in Western Europe, we have to get our minds around how we cope with that stuff, which is one of the things we have to do. Technology, and I don't know what the new form will be. The trite thing is to say, mobile is everything. I think Chinese technology will be very important. Xiaomi, Huawei, Lenovo, Haier, all these companies. There's a new mobile brand called OnePlus, which is competing with Xiaomi, which is now undermining Apple actually in China, and going into India and Brazil and Indonesia is going to be more powerful. So the technology, I'm not smart enough to figure out, who will be the two kids in a garage somewhere who will, be the dragon slayers, or will slay the incumbents. Data and horizontality, as we call it, which is leveraging knowledge. But the three things: technology, right, which is very difficult, again, for us at Cannes on the Croisette to get our minds around. Data, and last but not least, you'll be glad because I'm going to shut up now, is content. Now, one of the things that Owen didn't mention, because he's looking at CNN, is we're a partner with Time Warner. And we're a partner in Vice. We own 10% of Vice. Murdoch Rupert Murdoch, James Murdoch, in the form of Fox, own about 5%. Disney just bought 5%. And Time Warner has done, not through CNN, but in parallel to CNN, has done a $400 million production deal with Vice to produce, for 48 weeks of the year, every day, a half-an-hour news program and 40 one-hour specials. So enough of the sermon, but technology, data, content, those three things are the big differentiators. And what we're doing with WPP is half our business is in media. So the 75 billion, the commission and fee income from that is about $5 billion. And we have $5 billion from data, so that's Kantar. That's 10 billion out of 19, so it's half our business. That half we're going to pull together.
How they all that data get, though? Because you've obviously invested quite significantly in partnerships with IBM, haven't you?
Well, the IBM thing is slightly different because it's really back office. I mean, my colleagues in the room will shudder when I say this, but here goes. We want one back room at WPP. I want us to have just one back room so we can invest in the front rooms, the client-facing, the technology, the data, the media, whatever it happens to be, the creative, whatever it happens to be. But the IBM thing is IT communication. And actually, what was really interesting, as we started to develop that, we said this to the street in the city yesterday, we negotiated with, it was a Vodafone actually, a mobile connectivity agreement in 5 countries in Europe. And the amazing thing, I am told by my colleagues, and I hope this proves to be true, because I know we have people from Vodafone here, that this is the first deal that has been done with a multinational on mobile connectivity across the whole of our business in 5 countries that's ever been done, which I was amazed by, or they have ever done, which I was amazed by, because I thought people were more connected. So the IBM Vodafone stuff that we're doing is very much related to our efficiency with clients. We have done big partnerships. We've done Twitter, we've done Facebook on data, we've done stuff with Google.
Are those still the platforms to be targeting? Because obviously YouTube's just turned 10 this week. Facebook.
The fact that somebody turns 10 doesn't, Nina, mean that they're dead.
No. But in the world of technology, it means that it's an established player. It's no longer the great big disruptor. These sort of so-called disruptive companies are viewed as actually quite established now. So are these kind of people to be partnering with, or are there other new upcoming partnerships that you could be forging?
Well, it is difficult because I'm 70 years old, as you nicely pointed out, and not long, and soon for the knacker's yard or the glue factory, and it's difficult enough for a 10-year-old to figure it out, or 20-year-old or 30-year-old, let alone a 70-year-old. So the honest answer, that's why I say I don't know, and don't any blogger in the room misinterpret that. But what you say is true, which is that if you look at millennials or centennials, centennials being 1997 plus, and millennials roughly 1985 plus. There's an amazing difference in their social habits. The Futures Group, which is one of our planning groups inside Kantar, run by Will Galgi, that's amazing statistics on Facebook. And the centennial use of Facebook is totally different and much less than the millennial. Why? Because parents are looking over and they want Snapchat, which is perishable, which can disappear. So you're absolutely right. So I don't know, I met Evan Spiegel and I insulted him. It was in Chicago, I remember it very clearly. I was sitting next to him, having lunch with him, and I said, gosh, you're a billionaire at 25. And he said, no, it's not 25, I'm 24. So that really put me in my place. And you're right. So what is, now, Facebook is the largest country, as of yesterday, I think it is, or today, the largest country in the world, which we said we thought it would be in due course. It has more people on it on a regular monthly basis than China. Does that mean the beginning of the end? I mean, just getting a little bit more controversial. Google faces an EU lawsuit, litigation, fine, whatever it is. There were 2 things that could have stopped Google. One was the problems of size, which you're alluding to. The bigger you get, the tougher it gets. And the other one was the regulator. And it looks as though in a European context, the regulator has got at them first. Although if you look at their results, which came out last night, their growth rate has slowed to 11%, which I'd give my eye teeth to have as our top line growth rate. And we're running at about half that. And their profitability has also been crimped by the other things they invested.
So these are still the important partners to be with, but then of course...
Well, our biggest media partner is Google. It's 3 billion out of the 75 billion. And the next biggest would be News Corp and Fox with around 2.5.
But presumably as a company, you also have to think about dedicating more staff and more talent to seeking out the next new partnerships. And I should also, when we're talking about data, talk about the fact that you, as well as technology, you say that we're moving from the era of mad men, if you like, the advertising world, to maths men, right?
Yeah,
so
or
you're going to
both,
have to invest
or both.
in that as well. These are taking up huge amounts more of your budget in comparison to previous
years. So the structure is 19 billion in revenue, and we invest about 12 billion in people. What people forget is a service business invests in human capital, it doesn't invest in fixed capital. So the fixed capital we invest in is $450 million. In the UK, the equivalent statistic is we have revenues of $3.2 billion, and we invest in staff in the UK $2 billion, right, dollars. That's our investment. So when you say it sort of crimps our budget, or it doesn't. And we have, the biggest problem in our business, and I think, again, my colleagues may agree or disagree, but we don't invest that 12 billion or that 2 billion in the UK in the most effective way. How many times do I hear what I call, I apologize, I offend anybody, the Jesus Christ phenomenon, or let me call it the Holy Moses phenomenon, to offend even more people. And that is, we need to hire this person because we've got a problem and we've got to solve it, and this person is Jesus Christ. And then 6 months later, Jesus Christ is, or Holy Moses, is consigned quietly to the graveyard. And why is that? And the reason is we don't do enough thinking. And let me give you that, you may disagree, but the best examples are McKinsey and Goldman by a country mile. They do 360-degree analysis, they do better recruiting, they do better training, they do better, all of the above in the talent area. We don't spend our time. What do? We go out and steal people. We win a piece of business, we nick them from the competition at a high rate, so we shoot ourselves in the foot. And by the way, I look at all this, I'm a micromanager, remember that, right? Okay? And I look at this, not because I want to micromanage it, but because I want to see what the bloody hell's going on. And it's shocking. And yet we do it. It's a sort of round tripping that goes on. How
does a company of your size get around that dilemma? Because all large companies in this room are facing that.
We have to get better. What we do it by being, it's very boring in a creative community or creative business, in the broadest sense of that word, to be methodical. But you have to be more methodical. And it's not because we have a business of scale, it's because that is the best way to do it. David Ogilvy used to write, once an office gets over 350 people, when he couldn't remember the name of the person when he got into the elevator, in the office, he thought it was time to stop. Or he wrote at some stage in his career that maybe it's the time to stop. McKinsey, actually, interesting in the UK, I remember talking to Ian Davis, who was the senior partner of McKinsey in the UK at the time, a long time ago. McKinsey had got to 450 million people, it was getting bigger, and he actually said to me that we're thinking about setting up a McKinsey 2, a different brand even. They didn't do it, because the offices were getting too big. So there's a scale issue in creative businesses, not in media, because the bigger you are in media, by and large, I'm buying it, but that's where the economy of scale is, so that's that 75 billion figure. But creative businesses, clients tend to think, and people tend to think, bigger you get, worse it gets. So, but on people, we are atrocious as an industry. We started a WPP fellowship program for young graduates, and it's now in its 20th year, which I'm very proud of, and we have some really good people. It's difficult to retain them. First degree, second degree. Art schools, film schools, business schools, the lot. Did anybody in the industry, I was worried that everybody would copy it. Did anybody in the industry copy it? Zero. Okay? We do the Maestro program. We do the X Factor. Charlotte Beers, a number of the people in the room, our senior female talent, we put them through this. Yeah, look, I know that there are big pressures on all of us, and we're very short term in our thinking, many people think, but we don't think of it as an industry. And if this chapter could do anything in this area in terms of the training of people in our industry, rather than relying on stealing talent when you need to, I think that's really important.
So look further ahead, further down the time.
Well, by the way, the supply of, we know there's a war for talent.
Yeah.
The supply of people, just putting it crudely, because of declines in birth rate and family size, is going to get tougher. So it's in our own interest.
Well, the reason why I'm coming to this is obviously because your company is one of scale. It's huge. And you've largely turned it into such a big company through acquisitions.
Mm-hmm.
Is that still going to be part of the WPP strategy, or have we seen so many acquisitions?
Well, I had a difficulty, because there I was at 40 years old, so I started relatively old, and the only thing I could buy with the partner I had at that time was a wire basket manufacturer that I had the resources to do it, and we could get control of it. And we wanted to make it into a major multinational marketing services company. That's what we actually said in the first circular that we issued on May the 9th, or whenever it was, of 1985. And so, and if I wanted to do it in my lifetime, which I wanted to do, it had to be done at least in part by acquisition, if not wholly. Now, it's changed, because we're doing lots of small and medium-sized stuff now. We spend a lot of money each year. We spend about 400 million, 500 million pounds a year, but our cash flow free cash flow is about £1.5 billion, and EBITDA is £2 billion. So we have a lot of wherewithal, and the market cap, as I said, is £20 billion. So we have a lot of sort of room to maneuver. So acquisitions are going to continue to play a very important role. So I was with the Xaxis people this morning by video conference. They're having their global conference in Berlin. Now, I'm very proud of Xaxis, which is so what other people call programmatic, but it isn't programmatic. It's really sort of buying targeted audiences by using data and technology too. But this is a company that we started, Brian Lesser started out of 24/7 Real Media 4 years ago. And this year, it probably will cross $1 billion of revenues in 4 years, in what others call programmatic. Now, it's 1 billion out of 75, so it's small stuff, but it's growing. And I'm very proud of that, because that indicates, that wasn't done by, well, it was done by acquisition, because we bought 24/7 Real Media. I used to say to Dave Morgan, we overpaid royally for 24/7 Real Media. I said that this morning, and they all still laugh at that. But here we are. Out of that came Xaxis. Out of that has come our relationship with AppNexus, where we have 20%. And that is our position to take on Google at 360 billion market cap with DoubleClick, and Facebook with 180 or whatever it is, billion market cap, maybe more, 200, and Atlas. And by the way, Google is a media owner, and Facebook's a media owner. We are not. We're agnostic. You wouldn't give your media plan to Ted Turner if you were a client. Why do you give it to Google or Facebook? Doesn't make any sense. And I know a lot of people are worried about transparency. A lot of commentary currently about that issue. Well, we should think about that one too. Think about transparency. Do you know how the algorithms work? Do you know how the page rankings? Do you know how you get up on the page rankings? You don't. Do procurement departments complain about that? I haven't heard that one.
What do you make of Google's new mobile getting?
The Wi-Fi stuff?
Yeah, the mobile one where the sites will be ranked much further down if they're not mobile friendly, certain businesses.
I thought you were referring to their mobile excursion a couple of days ago. Well, Google is a phenomenal company. As I said, it's our biggest media relationship, $3 billion. Up from $2.5 billion the year before. Probably this year we'll do $4 billion. For orders of magnitude, Facebook last year was $640 million, the year before $439, and we're targeting $1.25 billion, I think it is this year. So orders of magnitude, still 3 to 1. Most big media owners with us are somewhere between 750 million and 2.5 billion. That's rough. Yeah, the big legacy traditional media owners. So Google is phenomenally strong. The people are incredible. They plan their business, they plot their business. I mean, we've learned so much from them, I think, in planning our business. And they've lost a lot of good people. I mean, they've staffed Facebook, and they've staffed a lot of other startups and companies, and yet they're still very strong. So don't get me wrong, but this test by the EU here is a significant test. It's going to take a long time. Microsoft took 10 years to sort out, not dissimilar. It may be that we're going to witness the same thing. So the regulator has got in amongst it, and the regulator is concerned about them putting restrictions on clients on using their technology. Now, you want to participate with Google in their worldwide agreements or their European agreements, you have to use DoubleClick or whatever their technology. So coming back to your point, whether it's the Wi-Fi initiative, which goes up and they buy spectrum from T-Mobile and Sprint, and then they compete with all the other
to make mobile phones. Yeah.
It's phenomenal. Driverless cars, phenomenal. 10 people, they told me it took 10 people 10 years to develop the driverless car, their first driverless car. So when you think about it, there's only 10 people building that gyroscope, which takes 1 million or 1.25 million photos a second. So they are a phenomenal company, but maybe there are limits to size. Maybe there are limits as far as the regulator is concerned, which they're coming into contact with. And
limits for size then for a company like WPP?
Well, our market share is relatively puny. If it was up at 80 or 90%, then maybe you'd be right. But I think we've got a long way to go, and a lot of our segments are very fragmented. Very fragmented. So I think there's a lot more for us to play with. And then the new areas that we're exploring, whether it be technology, data, or content, give us a lot of room for maneuver.
About 2 years ago in that very seat, we had Maurice Lévy.
Yep.
About 2 weeks before
you had
what
my
you
sympathies.
called the POG, what did you call it? POG merger? What was it? POG?
Was this pre-POG merger or post?
Pre-POG merger.
Right.
You dubbed that.
Was the POG had that been announced by then?
It hadn't been announced, and he was sitting in this seat. And then, of course, that potentially transformative merger was on the cards, and now it's off the cards.
Yeah.
Does that take the pressure off WPP to, not necessarily engage in transformative acquisitions, but just, as you said, more bolt-on?
When POG was announced, I had a sort of, there were 5 points that we made about lack of strategy, lack of structure, the regulators, conflict, not explaining it to clients or people. I mean, they were listening, but in essence, what was that about? And I don't know whether, Nina, you asked him whether that was going to happen or whether he was going to do big deals or whatever it is, and what his answer was at that time. But my view is it was the right idea. Coming back to this issue of scale, it would have given them great scale. It would have given them great resource. And if you think about the strategic sort of the 4 points, geography, technology, data they wouldn't have had anything. They did make a big play of data, but they had no first-party data between them. There's Hall and Partners inside Omnicom, but beyond that, very little. There's some stuff, but not much. And then the horizontality, if they start to play, the integration card. So if you think about it theoretically, it made a lot of sense. And I think that's what drove it. I mean, for two people who clearly were very different in terms of personality, to agree to a merger of equals, which everybody in this room knows in their heart of hearts there is no such thing. There is only an acquisition. There's no such thing as a merger, there's only an acquisition. And everybody should be upfront about that from the very beginning. But for them to have agreed it, given that they are two totally different personalities, and they had not discussed it internally with their management teams to any extent whatsoever. In fact, it came as a bolt from the blue just prior to the announcement. It indicates to me, it wasn't about tax synergies, although there were a lot of tax synergies. It indicates to me that they were concerned that they needed greater scale in the industry. And I can't fault that logic. What I can fault is, with the benefit now of 2020 hindsight, is if they believed from their organization's point of view, that it was the best thing to do, which they clearly did both agree, because otherwise they wouldn't have announced it. They should have, and they couldn't agree on a personality basis to get it done because they said they were squabbling over the CFO. They should have gone, and somebody else should have done it. Andrew Robertson, Jean-Yves Nouri, whoever, should have got together, because from the shareholders' point of view, if it made sense. Now, and one other thing,
and
what was
that transformed the industry, though, and also your position
we
in the
would have
industry.
done. Yeah. Number 2 and 3 get together in any industry, it would have done. Of course it would. It would have focused and got, IPG would have said, what am I doing? Dentsu Aegis would have said, what am I doing? Vincent Bolloré
Do you
even.
think that's completely off the cards now, or?
No, you never say never, because, Maurice sat here 2 years ago and never said anything about it. I don't know at that particular point in time whether he was going up the back doors of the Carlton Hotel in Cannes, or John Wren was secretly going up to avoid anybody knowing that they were talking. But the point is fundamental, which is, and after the deal collapsed, somebody sent me, from one of the investment banks, sent me an article from the Wall Street Journal in 1999. And it was 2 telecoms companies that announced that they were going to do a merger of equals. And after a year, in exactly the same circumstances, it collapsed. And the 2 CEOs came out and said, it is our belief that we can't get this together because we can't see eye to eye on management structure. The last paragraph said, in the sort of editor's view was, if that is the case, why would 2 individuals, or why should 2 individuals stop a deal that from a shareholder point of view, from a shareholder return point of view, from a shareholder value point of view, makes sense, and from an industrial logic point of view. So, and just one little final addendum. 6 months after they said we can't get together because we can't agree on the CFO, one CFO, Randy Weisenberger, left Omnicom very suddenly. We don't know the reasons why. Nothing in the proxy that just came out a few weeks ago. So the answer to your question is, if this was good for the industry, well, good for them in the context of the industry, and I think logically, strategically, if it was well laid out, it would have been, why didn't it take place? So maybe when Maurice and John have retired to Florida or where it is they retire, the south of France or whatever, Jean-Yves Nouri will come back because he's left. He's suing Publicis for wrongful dismissal now, interestingly. They'll come back and put the deal back together again. Maybe? Thank you. Thanks really much.
Ladies and gentlemen.